Welcome to Watts 3010 Introduction to Web Development. This course is part of the Certificate in Web Technology and Application Studies at Seattle University. I'm Becky Peltz, and I'm going to walk you through a set of tutorials for the Skills 1 repo, which teach you the basics of HTML and CSS. There will be a separate video for each tutorial in the Skills 1 repo. You will only have to fork the repo once and publish the GH pages once, but I'll point this out in every video. The Skills 1 tutorial prepare you for Project 1 in a page with internal navigation. So here we are in the Skills 1, 8 fonts and text. So this is actually the last tutorial listed in Skills 1. And we're going to be looking at font and text. And if you look at the bottom, there's an example of what we might expect to see at the end. Although you're going to be able to choose your own fonts, the idea is that we're going to end up with, it looks like 6 different fonts all applied to the same text. So we'll be given some articles, we'll just copy them, and then we'll go find some fonts to apply to them. And we want to be looking at the serif versus sans serif for our using some of the built-in fonts. And you can see, if you can look closer here, that, yes, very close, that the serif have the little hooks. So serif means hook, and then the sans serif do not have those hooks. So we have serif and sans serif. And then we have 2 fonts that we get from Google Fonts. So you can go out to Google Fonts and pick whatever font you want. And these are not really characterizable necessarily as serif or sans serif. Like this is a cursive font, and this is just something, another font that I picked out. So that's what we're aiming for here. And so yes, why don't we get into the directions and see what we need to do to get to that page. So because we're going to be starting with a page that looks like this, and this is one of the articles here. We're going to end up just copying that and then applying our font styles and a few other styles to this in order to come up with our final page here. All right, let's take a look at that. So we start out with a reference here to some design information. This CRAP, Principles of Design, so standing for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. We're going to be able to see that the first one listed, contrast, that the colors really play into that quite a bit. So there are going to be some links throughout here that can help you think about color in terms of color blindness, colors that are easy to read. I mean, even if you're not styling for accessibility, which you should be, you still want your content to be read, and that requires creating appropriate contrast. And there's a contrast checker here. Let's see, that you can look at. So yes, this contrast checker allows you to enter a couple of colors and then determine how well they fit the requirements for web accessibility. So if you want to play with that, that can be useful. So what I'm going to do here, and I'm not really sure that I picked the most, accessible colors, but hopefully there's enough contrast that it's readable, and it can be fun to play with colors. And so if you want to experiment with other color contrast, feel free to. In the end, what we're looking for is good contrast, and then 2 built-in serif, 2 built-in sans serif, and 2 Google fonts, and we'll see how to get that. There's a link here in that will give you instruction on how to pick up Google Fonts, but we'll take a look at that here too. So yes, you can see too, there's some description of Hex Font. So red, green, blue are the main font colors, and the hexes are just the first 2 characters are red, and it numbers from 0 to F, so it rolls over 9 A, B, C, D, E, F. So F indicates the most amount of light, so you're going to get white with the most amount of light, and 0 is the least amount of light, so you're going to get black, and then red, green, blue for, and then most colors are combinations of those. And then RGB, instead of 2 hex values, you get an octal value of 255 being the most color, and 0 being the least color. And then you can also use RGBA, and the fourth value is the opacity. So sometimes we want to have like an opaque white when we're putting text on top of an image, say, and we need to create some contrast there. So we'll see examples of that later on. And then HSB, hue, saturation, and brightness. So there's some links to read about that. All right, so getting into this, we've got a superscript. We're going to learn about superscripts, HR, which is a ruler, horizontal ruler, rems we've talked about, and then we're going to get into our different serif and sans serif fonts, and then some Google fonts. So the first step is to, there's a single article, make 6 copies, and for each article apply a different font such that there are 2 serif, 2 sans serif, and 2 CVNs from Google. So let's start by making the copies of this article. We'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can name these however you want. So here I've named it Times New Roman. Let's say we're going to do, I'm going to do an Arial Helvetica, and that Times New Roman just happens to be the default browser. It is a serif font. Arial Helvetica, and then a Cambria, and I'm going to do a Gil Sans. And you can check out all the available fonts and come up with, you don't have to use exactly these, you can, but the idea is I'm kind of alternating here, serif, sans serif, serif, sans serif. And then I need to go find a couple of Google fonts to use. And so to do that, you just go out to the web, and oh, you can see my 6 articles there, and just fonts.google.com, and then you can kind of just choose a couple of fonts. So I don't know, let's try maybe this one. And if you want to try out a font, you just sort of add it, and we'll grab 2 of them. We'll try this one. These are not necessarily the most readable, but we'll just give these a try. So what you need to do to bring them in is, here you can see, because I've chosen 2, it kind of links them together. I have acronym and just another hand. And so I'm going to just add this link to my page. So I'll go to my index.html, and I'll add a link. And then I'm going to want to use these font families, okay? So it doesn't say that I need to create this, but I'm going to need to create a folder for CSS and file style.css. And now where do I put this CSS with respect to these links? I'm going to put them underneath the links, and the reason why is style sheet, because my CSS is going to rely on them, and so the fonts need to be loaded before my CSS can use them. So href equals CSS style. Okay, so that gives me a place to put them, and then just pasting those in just to hold on to them. I'm going to be needing to use those in my style sheet. And so, and I think I will just name my my articles with those names, so I'll just make this, but I'll make it all lowercase, and I'll just use the kebab casing, and then acronym. Okay, so that gives me a set of styles, and then what I'm going to need to do in order to get this working is to add these styles into my style sheet. So what I'll do is I think I'm going to speed this up in the entry in the video, so you don't have to watch me type. I'll do one just to get started so that you can see how this works. So if I start, let's start with Times New Roman, and I'm going to type in font family. Okay, and you can see here are the built-in fonts. So these are the ones that you could choose from. And if you look out at the end, you will see that, I don't know if you can see that here, but that they it shows you whether they're serif or the actual family shows up out at the end. So that can help you to identify them. But here we're going to want to do Times New Roman. It's serif and semicolon. So and just for an example of Arial Helvetica font family Arial Helvetica. Okay, I'm going to do the rest really quickly now. All right, so I've got these all in, and as I entered them, I saw that I had made some mistakes over here, so I corrected it. It's Gill with one L and just another hand. And once I've got all that in, I can remove this reminder here. And I now can look at this page, and I can see my 6 different fonts where it's serif, sans serif, serif, sans serif, and then this cursive, another hand, and then this acronym. So I've got my styles in there now. So the next thing that I'm wanting to do is to add a link to the soup tag. So the soup tag is for Superscript, so that when I click on it, it would take me down to this. It would positioning me there. And it's not like I really need it when these are all, you know, when that's not below the line. But let's say I was kind of crunched in here a little and I wanted to quickly get to this citation here. And so what I can see here is that it would be nice if there was a link here that would take me down here, an internal link. So that's what I'm going to add next. All right, so to set up the link, I'm going to be doing an internal link to this IDS1. I just need to wrap this superscript in an anchor tag. So we'll set up an anchor tag and put the superscript in there, and the href will go to #s1. All right, and let's see if that did it. So if we're down here and let's just say we're here, yes, it would get us so that we can see it. So that using superscripts for citations can be a helpful usability kind of feature. All right, the next thing that we're wanting to do is to do some styling. So here's how we get this color scheme. And let me open up this style to the right here so that I can kind of follow along. So we can just say that, okay, we want a body background color. So body background color and it's going to be this. I'm just going to copy and paste so I don't make a typo. It's going to be that color green, and then the article background color is going to be article background color will be this hex color, sort of blue, and then the header colors, so we'll just say H1, H2, H3, are going to be color. So these are the kinds of things where you'll want to test, your background colors and your colors to make sure that there's high contrast. Then we're going to set the default font size to 1.3, so we'll do that in the body, and font size 1.3 rem. Let's see how it's looking. Okay, so we're still got a ways to go here. Set the article margin to, okay, we have a top, right, bottom, and left. So let's say the margin, we've got an article specifier here. We'll say margin 2 rem. Now, since the top and bottom are the same and the right and left are the same, there's a shortcut that I can use, which is I only need to specify it like so. So when you just have two items there, the first one refers to top and bottom, and the second one left and right. So I can get that shortcut. And set article padding to 2 rem. So padding 2 rem. And headers, I'm going to align the text to the center. So text align center. So this is given to me in English, and I'm just translating it into code. For the H2, I'm going to increase the letter size to 0.3. So let's say got H2. And letter spacing, so it is letter spacing. So letter spacing is going to give me a change in space between each letter. And so we're going to increase it just a little bit, rem. And then we're going to do a text transform. Let's see, do I have that? No, let's see. For superscript style, the underline away and make the text black and red hover. Okay, so let's see, that's going to be for the soup. So we're on 9 here for the superscript. Style the underline away and make the text black with the red hover. So styling the underline away is where we use our text decoration none. So soup A, we're going to remove the text decoration so there's no underline. And we're going to color it black and set the font size to 1 rem. And then we want to get a red hover on it, so we'll set the pseudo selector color to red for hover. Let's see, the next thing we want to do is set the article paragraph margin to 3 rem. So let's see, article paragraph margin 3 rem. So this is kind of translatable from English into code. I hope you're kind of sort of visualizing what's going on as we're providing some spacing around text and some kind of basic things here. Then this is kind of new, is we're going to change the size of the first letter. So we can target, using a pseudo selector, the first letter of the article paragraph first letter. And we're going to make it a little bigger so it kind of each paragraph stands out a little bit. So we'll just do that with font size 3 rem. So let's see how this is looking. Yeah, you can see that that first letter is a little bigger. We've spread this out a bit. And then finally the footer should appear black with no underlines for links and appear gray on hover. So to do that, we're going to target the footer, the anchor tag will be black, and the text decoration none, and then we want to set the footer hover to be gray. All right, let's see how this looks. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We do have our link going on. How does this compare to the picture? It looks like there's some border radius in there that wasn't mentioned in here. Let's see, border. Yeah, they didn't mention the border radius, but we can add that. So let's see. We'll just put a little bit of border radius on the article. Let's see. So if I go back up to where I worked on the article, I'll say border radius 1 rem. Okay, and if I wanted to, maybe that margin, maybe the padding looks a little, let's just take a look here. What do we got? Oh, we have like a really big margin there, 3 rem. Let's bring that down to 1 rem, and that's on the paragraph. So we have this, so now I'm just going to do a little styling that's not in here, but hopefully see if that helps. Okay, just to give it make it look a little better. And the color doesn't look right in there either. We should make that white. So we got sort of an incomplete set of instructions there, but yeah, that's a lot easier to read. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better. Let's see, anything else with that article? Yeah, well, I think that looks good. All right, so sometimes, yes, you'll get these instructions from your designer, but they won't really be fully good. But if you take a look at the picture, you can sometimes make an adjustment. So I think that's pretty good. It still does look a little bit like there's some extra padding or something. So let's just take a look at this. It does look like we could set the padding to, let's say, 1 rem. I think that does look a little bit better. So let's go back up to the article, and we'll set padding. Well, we've got padding in there already. We'll just make this 1 rem. All right, so the code doesn't match exactly what we were told to do, but all in all, it looks pretty good. This sup, I think we want to set a text decoration of none and the same color. So let's see. We did set text decoration none, so why are we getting this? So I'm inspecting this and I'm trying to figure out why this text decoration none is not getting applied. And what I can see is I have an A sup, but in my code I have a sup A. So let's do some rearranging with that subscript. And so we'll go to the index and we want to have the sup wrap the A instead of the A wrapping the sup. So I'm just going to take that sup out, I'm going to use my command line wrap sup. Okay, and then we'll go back and see. Yeah, that fixed it. Okay, so you know, sometimes you got to do a little debugging. But anyway, I think we're good here, and so at this point we can just check this in. And the important thing is that you start to get a feel for the fonts and the typography that you're working with. There are actually many free sites you can Google to find free fonts that you can play around with. And again, the built-in fonts, they've gotten a lot better over the years, but it's still nice to be able to bring in very anti-aliased fonts that look good at different resolutions. Okay, so there we go. Let's go go back out here and check on our upload. So before you turn things in, it really is a good idea to check your work. Saves a lot of time. I mean, when I'm grading, if I see things not quite working, sometimes I can't really grade it, and then you have to find out about it and resubmit it. So I think that looks good, and we've got that working. We've got our different font sizes, and we can kind of recognize the sans serif and the serif and bring in some different types of fonts. All right.